are not a gift, but a curse. Born out of rage. Black Adam.
You believe you are not worthy. But you have two paths. You can be the destroyer of this world. Or you can be its savior. The world needed a hero. Instead, it got me.
Welcome back, everyone. They dropped a brand new Black Adam trailer, so we'll break it down. There's a bunch of Easter eggs. DC also just announced their 10-year plan for movies. A lot of you asking me, like, what's happening with DC movies now? Because they had a big earnings call at Warner Bros. About all the stuff they were canceling and all the stuff they were continuing with. Literally everybody was talking about it in their feeds. Even people who don't watch DC movies at all were clowning about it in their feeds. So I will explain what's going on with that and what their plan is for like the next 10 years. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. There's a bunch of really big stuff starting really soon, a bunch of big episodes for a bunch of different series. So even though it does seem kind of like a bloodbath right now with what's going on with DC movies and DC TV shows, there is still a lot of really big stuff coming up through the rest of the year. But because everything they announced for the future of DC movies for the next 10 years is so big, I'll start with that, then I'll talk about the trailer footage. Like, everybody wants to know what's going to happen with the Justice League, with all the different movies, everything they're canceling, what are they not canceling? So basically, as everyone predicted, what they announced at the big earnings call is that they're combining HBO Max with the Discovery Plus streaming service next summer, at least in the United States. Around the world, it's going to be the same, but it's going to take a little bit longer for it to happen in all the countries around the world. And as part of that, the CEO of the new company is trying to erase like $3 billion of debt from their books. And as part of that, they're basically canceling a bunch of different series, not just a bunch of DC TV series, but a bunch of series that Warner Bros. Owns, was getting ready to make, or had just started making in order to try and get rid of as much debt as possible. Also, they made this big thing about how they're going to release all their movies in theaters first now. They're going to go back to the old model. Like, they release a movie in theaters, then they put it on digital, then they put it on their streaming service. And they're not going to release anything that they don't feel like is like a big blockbuster event, like a huge, big spectacle movie in theaters. And they said that they didn't feel like the Batgirl movie was like that. Doing that and clearing debt off their books is basically why the Batgirl movie got canceled. Like the new CEO said, it's all about their whole idea that they don't want to release something that's not like a giant, big spectacle in theaters, and that's what they're planning on doing. So the real big thing that they canceled was actually them just doing smaller movies that were exclusively for their streaming service. Then the CEO said that they're doubling down on content, like they're spending way more money on content, it's just the way that they're releasing it is changing. And this is true for all the DC movies, all the big budget DC HBO series that they've been working on or are currently working on. Like James Gunn said, don't worry guys, Peacemaker Season 2 is fine, like we're still making it. We're still making all those Batman HBO spin-off series of the Robert Pattinson version of the Batman movie. Most of the TV stuff they're canceling was stuff that was either really long in the tooth, like it was in the later seasons and was coming from a different network like the CW DC TV shows. That's why The Flash basically ended, because it's hitting season 9, so they're like, okay, time to end the show, we're not making money on it anymore, so there's no reason for us to do it anymore. The same is true for all the other CW DC TV shows. That means that Superman and Lois will probably go for at least like another couple seasons, and then they'll probably end that around season 4 or season 5. So when it comes to all the stuff that they're canceling and all the stuff that they're continuing with, it just depends on which network it came from and what they originally intended it to be. Is it a spin-off from the DC movies in some way, or a spin-off of one of the DC movies recently? And was it designed to be like one of these big-budget HBO series, like the Marvel Disney Plus series? It's just that there were like a billion different DC TV shows. There were some animated shows. There were some CW DC TV shows that were from like completely different groups of people that they're slowly kind of sunsetting in the background. That's why they basically killed the Arrowverse, so to speak. Like, The Flash was like the last legit core Arrowverse show to end, because Superman and Lois takes place in a completely different universe. They used all this big terminology like a big reset for DC movies, this new 10-year plan. They specifically mentioned Marvel Studios and Kevin Feige as being sort of like their benchmark for what their new plan is for the future of DC films. What that means, though, is that they're all about the interconnected universe. So if you really like what Zack Snyder started to do with the Snyderverse, like these interconnected movies and all the different superheroes, they want to eventually do a version of that, whereas that was not the case before. Like you have a bunch of different characters like the Joaquin Phoenix Joker film, the Matt Reeves Batman, all the other core DCEU films like Aquaman 2, Wonder Woman 3, even Shazam 2, and the Black Adam movie are DCEU films. Between all those films, those were all in like completely separate universes, and they were gonna try and tie everything together with the Flash movie in the multiverse. Now it sounds like with their change in direction, with them really wanting to double down on this interconnected universe, they're gonna try and make some tweaks to the way the Flash movie works so that this does all make sense. So that like somehow you are able to tie the Joaquin Phoenix Joker to everything, so that eventually you are able to tie the Matt Reeves version of the Batman character to everything. Because it's a 10-year plan, that basically accounts for about 3 more Justice League films. Like they're talking about like a new trilogy of Justice League films, basically, with a new roster of the team. Zachary Levi teased what one of their plans were before all this big buyout talk happened, but it's not too different from what their new plan is going to be, because you have all these brand new characters coming into the universe. They also want to work them up into a big Justice League team too. It's kind of like Avengers 5 Kang Dynasty and Avengers 6 Secret Wars, where you have a bunch of new characters coming into Avengers films. But a lot of us theorized last year after The Rock started posting about this is that he started putting the Justice League on notice, so to speak, in a lot of his promos, especially the DC fandom promos. Like, everyone do me a favor, tell the Justice League that I'm coming for them. They will eventually do a Justice League versus Black Adam film, so to speak, where you tie a lot of these brand new characters to the core Justice League characters. The big thing, though, is that everybody's just wondering who's going to be directing it and which actors are they going to use for a lot of these characters, because it really does seem like Warner Brothers wants to get rid of Ezra Miller as the Flash. Like, there's just been so much drama with him. Why don't we just bring in another version of the Flash? If we're setting up the multiverse, it's really easy to explain how you have another version of the Flash show up. Short term, they don't have any huge plans to change their release schedule for the movies that are coming out, though. So like all the movies that you heard about that are coming out in like the next year or two, those are all still coming out. The other big changes, they did say that there was a priority on, say, like Superman, the other core DCEU characters. So I would expect to hear news about a brand new Superman film or Superman being a main character in like one of the next big films in the next year or two. I've already done a couple videos about this. Everyone just hoping that they bring Henry Cavill back because he's been so quiet lately. There were all these rumors about him coming to Comic-Con with him making a big announcement. It sounds like they were waiting till after this earnings call and like the 10-year plan for the future of DC movies until they announce what's actually going on with some of these characters. So for those of you that want Henry Cavill to come back as Superman, I keep saying how The Rock is basically like his best chance to do that. That is more true now than ever. But just in general, the future of like the next like 3 or 4 years is building up to that next Justice League film where it's like the Justice League versus Black Adam for the most part. And that's how they also explain Shazam joining the actual Justice League. So when you see The Rock posting all these jokes about how the hierarchy of the DC universe is about to change and talking about how the Black Adam character is the future of the DC universe, that's kind of true. Like they are really using this character as a big piece in the future of DC films in the next couple of years. But like I said, Marvel Studios plan spinning off Disney Plus shows from the Marvel movies. They're doing the same thing with DC films. Expect more of these big budget DC HBO series to be spin-offs of the upcoming movies. But like the Justice Society, for example, big team that are debuting in the Black Adam film, they might do a Justice Society film and then do a Justice Society Disney Plus series after that. But now, talking about the new Black Adam trailer footage that they released, so they just start with a quick version of his origin story where you see him in the flashbacks getting the powers, seeing the death of his son. You have this voiceover from Black Adam himself and Dr. Fate where they talk about the nature of his powers and the directions he could take in the future, where they think of his powers as more of a curse than a blessing as opposed to the Shazam character who thinks it's this amazing thing that he has powers now. But now in present day, Dr. Fate, Hawkman are trying to convince him to help them and the new version of the Justice Society defeat Intergang in this new Sabbac villain that's coming from the comics. And through that, him sort of realizing the responsibility he has to his people, and that's going to set him up as the ruler of Kahndaq like he is in the comics. Like, why is it he wants to be ruler over his own nation when he has all these superpowers? We get a bunch of new footage of Dr. Fate using his powers. You see him deactivate his powers, but he's always holding the helmet with him. I've talked about this in previous videos, how the powers of Dr. Fate, like the Helmet of Fate, Naboo, are kind of a curse more than a blessing, and they're kind of using that as a parallel for the powers of Black Adam. They keep showing this ancient Kahndaq figure that the Intergang villains are putting in a stasis tube, and a lot of people are confused on whether or not this is like the depowered version of Black Adam, like when he's deactivated his powers. I don't think that's the case. It does look similar to The Rock, but I think his head is also just shaved, and that's why people think that it's The Rock. The thing about Black Adam that's different from Shazam is that when they activate their powers, what it does is that their physical appearance gets transformed into whatever they imagine their ideal appearance to be. So for instance, Billy Batson, who's a kid, thinks that the ideal version of himself is the adult version of himself, and that's why he looks like an adult when he activates his powers. But when Black Adam activates his powers, he already thinks that he is the physical ideal of himself. Like, he already thinks that he is the best version of himself. So that's why his physical appearance doesn't change when he activates or deactivates his powers. And obviously, The Rock is way more swole than this guy, which is why I think that this guy is not The Rock. I think this is just meant to be a misdirect because the Intergang villains are trying to harness the powers of Sabbac, and the way his powers work are very similar to the way that the Shazam family and Black Adam's powers work, where they take their powers from a god, like gods grant them powers. Sabbac does the same thing, but he's a demon inside the DCEU. So the Intergang villains want the same type of powers as, say, like Black Adam, but they're using an evil character to do it, and obviously that's going to go completely off the rails, which is going to explain why they have a villain in the movie that's worse than Black Adam, and how you make him feel like an anti-hero. But I know everybody's just wondering about the future of DC films, like what's going to happen after the movies that they've already announced so far. Like I said, they're just reorganizing things and trying to interconnect everything the same way that Marvel movies are interconnected, building up to Avengers films. Whereas in the DC films, it's them building up to Justice League crossover films. When they make more casting announcements and say what some of those other films besides like the next Justice League film are going to be, of course I'll do videos for it. And we have the Black Adam film coming out really soon. Expect them to make more announcements about the future of Black Adam versus the Justice League after that happens. There's a bunch of other bonus videos that I'm working on, a bunch of trailers that have dropped, a bunch of big announcements. I'll try to post those as fast as possible. Everyone click here for that first look at Ben Affleck's Batman coming back in Aquaman 2, and click here to learn about all the DC stuff that they're canceling. Thank you so much for watching, everyone stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.